And welcome back, everybody. There we go. We're in focus now. And today we're going to be talking about the top 100 books commonly assigned in either high school and or undergraduate school. It's not a definitive list by any means, but we're going to be focusing from the range of the years 1925 to about 2025. There's not going to be a book for every year, as that was a little hard to do, and the jury's still out on some of the newer ones from the 2020s. But it is a list of 100, and the goal of this list is to show kind of a generational wave of reading and reading styles. Um, and I'm also going to give you a brief synopsis of each and every one of our 100 books there. But any book on this list, you should be able to talk to anybody of any age, well, within the high school range and older. And they should recognize at least one of these titles. And it's not to say that all these books suck, because you know my stance on assigned forced reading at an early age because you have no life experience. It is just a list of how it was, essentially. And I tried to do an accurate year by year by year um, gathering, but that research is kind of impossible because they didn't keep records of what I'm talking about. They didn't know to or think to, and nor should they, honestly, because this is kind of a weird video, but we're doing it anyway. So let's get started. We're going to crack open that screen share. And we're going to start here. And what's our number one book, you may ask? If you guessed The Great Gatsby, you would have won. Good job. So, The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, third book, stands as the supreme achievement of his career. First published by Scribner in 1925, this quintessential novel of jazz age has been acclaimed by generations of readers. The story of the mysteriously wealthy Jay Gatsby and his love for the beautiful Daisy Buchanan is an exquisitely crafted tale of America in the 1920s. So if you like America, you like jazz, you like the 1920s, this is probably great for you. And I'm going to assume most of you have heard of The Great Gatsby. They've reprinted this thing a million times. There's even movies and television shows with it. So, yeah. Moving on to number two. What are we going to get? And there we go. I'm just going to move this over here so I can go well, no, not that. You stay. This is what I want to move. Yeah, and let me redo the screen share because I may have goofed things up because I clicked the browser. Oh no. Share and reshare. There we go. And I will either have a Google Doc link because I don't think the characters will fit with all these books and their links in the description below. So if you're taking notes, cool, but I'll have something for you to reference later. So, oh no, I clicked the button. I'm just messing up today. Look at me. Let's try that one more time. And we're going on to number two with The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. Um, the debut novel from the Nobel Prize winning author that is both a tragic love story and a searing group portrait of hapless American expatriates drinking, dancing, and chasing their dreams in post-war Europe. Sounds like a good time to me. Um, Moving on. Number three. Let's go here. Click. Brave New World. And yes, I will butcher names along the way. This is a promise and a guarantee. Aldous Huxley. So now more than ever, Aldous Huxley's enduring masterwork must be read, blah, blah, blah. Thanks, Wall Street Journal. Anyway, profoundly important classic of world literature, Brave New World is a searching vision of an unequal, technologically advanced future where humans are genetically bred, socially indoctrinated, and pharmaceutically anesthetized to passively uphold an authoritarian ruling order, all at the cost of our freedom, full humanity, and perhaps also their souls. A genius who spent his life declaring the onward march of the machine, Huxley was a man of incomparable talents, equally an artist, a spiritual seeker, and one of history's keenest observers of human nature and civilization. And going on to number four. Oh, you all have heard of this one, probably. Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. So, a controversial tale of friendship and tragedy during the Great Depression. All right. Some of these descriptions I'll go fast, some of them I'll read it in depth. This one we're going to go fast, even though I stopped to tell you all that. Number 5. Maybe? Click. Aha. Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. A deeply soulful novel that comprehends love and cruelty and separates the big people from the small of heart without ever losing sympathy for those unfortunates who don't know how to live. Very cool. And going on to number 6. Our Town, a play in 3 acts by Thornton Wilder. And let's see. Our town leaves us with a sense of blessing and the unspeakable, palpable command to achieve gratitude in what remains of our days on Earth. Want a Pulitzer Prize-winning drama of life in the mythical village of Grover's Corners, New Hampshire. An allegorical representation of all life, is an American classic. It is the simple story of a love affair that asks timeless questions about the meaning of love, life, and death. Aha. Uh-oh. Coming up with another Steinbeck. Can you guess what it is before the page loads? Yep, The Grapes of Wrath. First published in 1939, Steinbeck's Pulitzer Prize-winning epic of the Great Depression chronicles the Dust Bowl migration of the 1930s and tells the story of one Oklahoma farm family, the Jodes, driven from their homestead and forced to travel west to the promised land of California, the promised land. Out of their trials and their repeated collisions against the hard realities of an American divided into haves and have-nots evolves a drama that is intensely human, yet majestic in its scale and moral vision, elemental yet plain-spoken, tragic, but ultimately stirring in its human dignity. So, I want to hear from the California watchers. Is it the promised land? I need to know in the comments. Am I missing out being here in Texas? All right. And coming in at number 8, we got another awesome classic. And there we go. Animal Farm by George Orwell. George Orwell's timeless and timely allegorical novel, a scathing satire of a downtrodden society's blind march towards totalitarianism. Yeah, I messed that word up, but you know what I meant. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Yeah, we can relate. Going on to number 9. The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. The diary, as Anne Frank wrote it, the single most compelling personal account of the Holocaust, remains an astonishing and excruciating. So, yeah, if you want to hear about the Holocaust perspective from one of the more famous diaries, we did a video on diaries that were everything but Anne Frank, and here we have Anne Frank. So there you go. This is probably the most, yeah, this probably is the most well-known diary. Going on, oh no, number 10, another Steinbeck, The Pearl. There it lay, the great pearl, perfect as the moon. One of Steinbeck's most hot works, The Pearl, is the story of the Mexican diver Kino, whose discovery of the magnificent pearl from the Gulf beds means the promise of a better life for his impoverished family. His dream blinds him to the greed and suspicions the pearl arouse in him and his neighbors, and even his loving wife, Juana, cannot temper his obsession or stem the events leading to tragedy. This classic novella from Nobel Prize winner John Steinbeck examines the fallacy of the American dream and illustrates the fall from innocence experienced by people who believe that wealth erases all problems. Now, the other Steinbecks, they are probably, if you're a reader, you've known them a lot. They're mentioned a lot, and probably even if you haven't read them, you hear about them a lot. This one you don't hear about so much, and I'll be honest, of the 3, I like this one probably the most. I don't know if that's my countercultural person coming out, but I did like this one out of the 3 the best. All right. Oh no, it's an Arthur Miller. What do we got? Death of a Salesman. There you go. Pulitzer Prize winner, Tragedy of a Salesman's Deferred American Dream. You think the Pulitzer Prize affected these assigned readings or not? I'm gonna guess so. But anyway, not to say nothing wrong with the book or anything like that. It's just influence, right? Ever since it was first performed in 1949, Death of a Salesman has been recognized as a milestone of an American theater. In the person of Willie Loman, the aging, failing salesman who makes his living riding on a smile and a shoe shine. Arthur Miller redefined the tragic hero as a man whose dreams are at once insupportably vast and dangerously insubstantial. He has given us a figure whose name has become a symbol for a kind of majestic grandiosity, and the play that compresses epic extremes of humor and anguish, promises and loss between the four walls of the American living room. There you go. Uh-oh, another Orwell. What could it be? Is it 1984? Yes, it is. Written almost 75 years ago, at least the time of the description. 1984 was George Orwell's chilling prophecy about the future. And while 1984 has come and gone, his dystopian vision of the government that will do anything to control the narrative is timelier than ever. Yeah, going on. Oh, I haven't heard this one mentioned in a minute, but I see it everywhere. The Catcher in the Rye. This brilliant, funny, meaningful novel, The New Yorker, that established J.D. Salinger as a leading voice in American literature and that has instilled in millions of readers around the world. And I need to know about the book. The hero narrator catching the Rye is an ancient child of 16, a native New Yorker named Holden Caulfield. Through circumstances that tend to preclude adult secondhand description, he leaves his prep school in Pennsylvania and goes underground in New York City for 3 days. So that will change your perspective. All right, number 14. We have by Ralph Ellison, The Invisible Man. Now, this is one of the few instances that I actually prefer the movie to the book. The book is good, but the film is fantastic. The pros are solid, don't get me wrong. And if you don't know the story of Invisible Man, the book is still worth reading. I'll say that. But I would watch the movie and read the book. I'd read the book and then watch the movie, and you'd be like, haha, he's right. But carrying on, one of the Atlantic's great American novels of the past 100 years, he describes growing up in a black community in the South, attending a Negro college from which he is expelled, moving to New York, and becoming the chief spokesman of the Harlem branch of the Brotherhood before retreating in violence and confusion. Originally published in 1952 as the first novel by a then unknown author, it remained a bestseller list for 16 weeks and established Ralph Ellison as one of the key writers of the century. The book is a passionate and witty tour de France. I hate that term. Style strongly influenced by T.S. Eliot, The Wasteland, and James Joyce and Dostoevsky. There we go. Moving on along. Another Hemingway. What could it be? Old Man and the Sea. A Pulitzer Prize winner. Shock. A beautiful tale awash the sea salt and sweet bait and beer of the Havana coast, it tells a fundamental human truth in a volatile world from our first breath to our last wish. Through triumphs and pitfalls, both trivial and profound, what sustains us ultimately is hope. That's a pretty good description. Let's have some coffee. Delicious. So, we're going to go on to Mr. Ray Bradbury, and if you guessed Star Trek, you would be wrong. We're going to be talking about Fahrenheit 451. Nearly 70 years after its original publication, Ray Bradbury, a national acclaimed novel, stands a classic, bleak dystopian future. I wish they would have the bottom bolded instead of the, I don't know, newspaper blurb. Guy Montag is a fireman. His job is to destroy the most illegal of commodities, the printed book, heresy, blasphemy, along with the houses in which they are hidden. Montag never questions the destruction and ruin his actions produce, returning each day to his bland life and wife, Mildred. He spends all day with her television family, but when he meets an eccentric young neighbor, Clarice, who introduces him to a past where people didn't live in fear and to a present where one sees the world through the ideas of the book instead of the mindless chatter of television, Montag begins to question everything he's ever known. So it is neat to see. And I'm not saying it hasn't been done better later, but I'm saying this is precedence for it. And when you have an epiphany type moment of your shapes reality of what you thought was wrong, which actually is the opposite, it's good. I mean, that is puts things in perspective a little bit. Uh-oh, another Arthur Miller coming in at number 17. Oh man, we're not even 20 in. The Crucible. It's going to be a long one, folks. A haunting examination of groupthink and mass hysteria in a rural community. See, now that's solid, and it did it in a sentence. Good job. Going on. Number 18. Love this. I love both the film and the book. I think they are both fantastic. And look, we got Mr. Stephen King with a new introduction for this version. But anyway, Lord of the Flies by William Golding. William Golding's compelling story about a group of very ordinary small boys marooned on a coral island has become a modern classic. At first, it seems as though it is all going to be great fun, but the fun before long becomes furious, and life on the island turns into a nightmare of panic and death. As ordinary standards of behavior collapse, the whole world the boys know collapses with them. The world of cricket and homework and adventure stories, and another world is revealed beneath them, primitive and terrible. All right, going on to number 19. Click, maybe. There we go. Things Fall Apart by. Going to drink coffee and stall while I figure out how to pronounce this awesome name. Chinua Achebe. That's what I'm going with, and I'm probably now nowhere close. Anyway, Things Fall Apart is the first of three novels in the author's critically acclaimed African trilogy. It is a classic narrative about Africa's cataclysmic encounter with Europe as it establishes a colonial presence on the continent, told through the fictional experiences of Okonkwo, a wealthy and fearless Igbo warrior of Umofia in the late 1800s. They should hire me to read the description for this page. Things Fall Apart explores one man's futile resistance to the devaluing of his Igbo traditions by British political and religious forces and his despair as the community capitulates to the powerful new order. All right. Oh, and I'm going to get hate for this probably, but I did not enjoy number 20 here, A Raisin in the Sun. I don't know why. I should. I haven't read it. This was something I read in high school. Maybe I need to go back and reread it. It's probably advisable. So, for my one reading decades ago, I did not enjoy it, but maybe I'll reread it in the future and give my different opinion. Anyway, Lorraine Hansberry's award-winning drama about the hopes and aspirations of a struggling working-class family living in the south side of Chicago connected profoundly with the psyche of Black America and changed American theater forever. The play's title comes from a line in Langston Hughes' poem Harlem, which warns that a dream deferred might dry up like a raisin in the sun. Yeah, all right. Moving on along to a separate. No, that's not the right link. Click it again. Wow, I messed that up. So we're gonna search it. So that's gonna be a separate piece by Mr. John Knowles. And there is a glaring typo there, and everybody probably is laughing at me, which is fine. Tell me how hard you laughed in the comments. And we're just gonna click this version. And I'm going to steal this link for the video show notes later. Haha. I did go through these and I thought I had confirmed all links are working, but I'm guessing in my copy paste frenzy, I messed up, which is okay. Anyway, nominated as one of America's best loved novels by PBS, The Great American Read. American classic and great bestseller for over 30 years, Separate Priest is timeless in its description of adolescence during a period when the entire country was losing its innocence to World War II. All right, Miracle Worker by William Gibson, based on the remarkable true story of Helen Keller and her teacher, Annie Sullivan. This inspiring, unforgettable play has moved countless readers and become an American classic. I did enjoy this. And I don't remember when I read this. I just remember reading it. I think I was in my 20s. But anyway, if you thought I was in my 20s already, you're very flattering. Going on to Night by Eli Wiesel. Wiesel. And I'm probably going to get sued. There we go. And this is the Memorial Edition. A seminal memoir of surviving the Nazis' death camps with tributes by President Obama and Samantha Power. Well, in this particular edition. Okay. So the White House issued a memorial statement in which President Barack Obama called him the conscience of the world. The whole of the president's eloquent tribute serves as a foreword in the memorial edition of Night, like millions of admirers. I first came to know Eli through his accounts of the horror he endured during the Holocaust simply because he was Jewish, wrote the president. And let's see. Wow, Peace Prize. That's actually a not Pulitzer Prize. Was rescued from the ashes of Auschwitz after storm and fire had ravaged his life. In time, he realized that his life could have purpose, that he was to be a witness, the one who would pass on the account of what had happened so that the dead would not have died in vain and so the living could learn. It's very good of him, I'll have to say that. Night, which has sold millions of copies around the world, is the very embodiment of that conviction. It is written in simple, understated language, yet emotionally devastating, never to be forgotten. I would say it's a tough read, but it's worth it. So I would recommend it. However, I would not recommend this next one as I did not enjoy it. But again, I read it when I was younger. Perhaps I should read it again, but it's Harper Lee, To Kill a Mockingbird. See, high school, college, they cause you to not like things that you should. But anyway, that's not a true statement. I'm just being snarky. So, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Look for The Land of the Sweet Forever, the Bastunia's collection of newly discovered short stories. Okay, they put extra things in this one. Cool. Maybe I will pick it up because I get extra material. Anyway, so one of the most cherished stories of all time, To Kill a Mockingbird, has been translated into more than 40 languages, sold more than 40 million copies worldwide, served as the basis for an enormously popular motion picture, and was voted one of the best novels of the 20th century by librarians across the country. So the filmmakers, the librarians, the general consensus of the world says I'm wrong. I'm okay with this. I will be wrong on this one. But I know I'm right for me. That's all that matters here. Carrying on, The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. That is number 23. And yep, let's see. The iconic international bestseller with over 25 million copies sold. I don't know. Does it saying it's an international bestseller or X amount of copies sold do anything for anybody anymore? It doesn't really shock me. But anyway, the inspiration for the Tony Award-winning Broadway musical, heroic coming-of-age novel revolving around friendship, belonging, and brotherhood that has touched the hearts of readers and generations. Stay gold, pony boy. Yeah. I did enjoy this, and I enjoyed the film. And if you go watch the film, you'll see some really young actors who become better, well-known older actors later. It is a good watch and also a good read. I would say the book is better than the film in this case. Yeah, so All right. So next up, we got The Pigmen by Paul Zindel. Join the millions of readers who discovered The Pigmen, the beloved best young adult classic from Paul Zindel, the Pulitzer Prize-winning author of The Effect of the Gamma Rays on Man in the Moon Marigolds. The Pigmen is the perfect read for fans of modern class. Okay, what's the book about? When high school sophomores John and Lorraine made a prank phone call to an elderly stranger named Angelo Pignotti, what starts as a practical joke quickly turns into a friendship that changes all of their lives forever. But when their friendship ends in tragedy, the only way for John and Lorraine to find peace is to write down their friend's story, the true story of the Pigmen. I've not read this one. I've heard a little bit about it. I may have to add this to my TBR. I think I will. And next up, we got Fences by August Wilson. From legendary playwright August Wilson comes the powerful, stunning, dramatic bestseller that won him critical acclaim, including the Tony Award for Best Play and the Pulitzer Prize. So we're noticing a trend of plays that get cycled in. That's interesting. Troy Maxson is a strong man, a hard man. He has had to be to survive. There we go. If you read it with proper pacing, it sounds better. Troy Maxson has gone through life in America, where to be proud and black is to face pressures that could crush a man, body and soul. But the 1950s are yielding to the new spirit of liberation. Liberation. Liberation in the 1960s, a spirit that is changing the world. Troy Maxson has learned to deal with the only way he can, a spirit that is making him a stranger, angry and afraid, in a world he never knew, and to a wife and son he understands less and less. This is a modern classic, a book that deals with impossible, difficult themes of race in America, set during the civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s. Ready? And pick number 26, Beloved by Toni Morrison. Hey, look, he's identified by his prize before his name. That's funny to me. Continuing on, Seath was born a slave and escaped to Ohio, but 18 years later, she is still not free. Seth has too many memories of Sweet Home, the beautiful farm where so many hideous things happen. And Seath's new home is haunted by the ghost of her baby, who died in Nameless and whose tombstone is engraved with a single word, beloved. So, another theme we're noticing, there is American racism going on, which is interesting. You figure we want to sweep that under the rug, but at least we're noticing from some books mentioned that no, we're going to have the classrooms read this, both in high school and college. This particular one was more at the college level, though. Oh, this one's good. The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. And let's see, where does the actual description start? In 1949, four Chinese women, recent immigrants to San Francisco, began meeting to play mahjong, remember the past, and gossip into the night. United in unspeakable loss and new hope, they call themselves the Joy Luck Club. With wit and sensitivity, Amy Tan examines the memories that display these women's strength, worries, and determination. This is a good read. I do recommend picking it up. And this is another good read. The Things They Carried by Ten O'Brien. A classic work of American literature that has not stopped changing minds and lives since it burst onto the literary scene. Things They Carry is a groundbreaking mediation of war, memory, imagination, and the redemption power of storytelling. I'm not going to say any more than that. You should pick it up and read it. Yep. Oh, there we go. All the Pretty Horses by Cormac McCarthy. All the Pretty Horses, the tale of John Grady Cole, who at 16 finds himself at the end of a long line of Texas ranchers, cut off from the only life he has ever imagined for himself. With two companions, he sets off from Mexico on a sometimes idyllic, sometimes comic journey to a place where dreams are paid for in blood. I thought this was a good read. I wouldn't say great, but good. But I'm a little bit biased as Western and or ranch life and or country living. It's hard for me to get into. I don't know why. Yeah, maybe it's because I'm from Texas and it's around me all the time. Um, because even this description here, it sounds like something that would happen in 2026 here. But yeah, uh, this is yeah, Into the Wild by John. Well, let's pull it up so I can read better. Krakir Krakar. There we go. There we go. That's country pronunciation for me right there. Anyway, McCandless had been given 25,000 in savings to charity, abandoned his car and most of his possessions, burned all the cash in his wallet, and invented a new life for himself. Not long after he was dead, Into the Wild is the mesmerizing, heartbreaking tale of the enigmatic young man who goes missing in the wild and whose stories capture the world's attention. There you go. I think that's from the one of the movies they made. Interesting. Oh, this one's long. Very fully enough. Modernity at Large, Cultural Dimensions of Globalization, Volume 1. Though, well, I skipped one. Well, no, I didn't. I think they want the whole thing in here, but here's just the first one. But anyway, examines the role of imagination in the cultural development of our shrinking world. The world is growing smaller. Every day we hear the idea expressed and witness reality to our lives through the people we meet, the products we buy, the foods we eat, and the movies we watch. In this bold look at the cultural effects of shrinking world, leading cultural theorist Arjun Appadurai I places these challenges and pleasures of contemporary life in broad global perspective. So if that's your jam, apparently this is recommended. I'm going to guess at the college level. Yep, definitely college. All right, number 32. Over oh, no, not even a third. We're moving on though. Development as Freedom by Amartya Sen. Scene. One of those. By the winner of the 1988 Nobel Prize in Economics is essential and paradigm in altering framework for understanding economic development for both rich and poor in the 21st century. Alrighty. Next up. Bowling Alone, revised and updated. Well, Bowling Alone. If you want the revised and updated, that's up to you. The Collapse and Revival of American Community by Robert D. Putnam. And 20 years ago, Robert D. Putnam made a seemingly simple observation. Once we bowled in leagues, usually after work, but no longer. This seemingly small phenomenon symbolized a significant social change that became the basis of the acclaimed bestseller, Bowling Alone, which the Washington Post called a very important book, and Putnam, the de Tocqueville of our generation. Bowling Alone surveyed in details America's changing behavior over the decades, showing how we have become increasingly disconnected from family, friends, neighbors, and social structures, whether it was with the PTA, church, clubs, political parties, or bowling leagues. And I've had this, man, can't stop coughing today. And I've had the same discussion plenty of times with people, and I agree. And I have read this book, and it's a good one. But anyway, I'll save my opinion for another video, but it is a good observation, I believe an accurate one, and still applicable. So, next up, number 34. The Complete Persepolis, Volume 1 and 2. So, yeah, get the whole thing here. Here in one volume, internationally acclaimed graphic memoir of her growing up as a girl in Iran during the revolution has for 20 years been a classroom staple, a feminist manifesto, and one of the most popular and widely known graphic novels of all time. A stunning graphic memoir, blah, blah. Unforgettable childhood and coming of age within a large and loving family in Tehran during the Islamic Revolution, of the contradictions between private life and public life in a country plagued by political upheaval, of her high school years in Vienna facing the trials of adolescence far from her family, of her homecoming, both sweet and terrible, and finally, of her self-imposed exile from her beloved homeland. This is, I recommend. And clicking on over here to bring it on over here. All right. Provincializing Europe, post-colonial thought and historical difference. And this is the new edition by Depeche Chakrabarti. Say that 3 times fast. Anyway, first published 2000, influential book addresses the mythical figure of Europe that is often taken to be the original site of modernity in many histories of capitalist transition in non-Western countries. This imagery, Europe, Depeche Chakrabarti argues, is built into social sciences. The very idea of historizing carries with it some peculiarly European assumptions about disenchanted space, secular time, and sovereignty. Measured against such mythical standards, capitalist transition in the third world is often seemed either incomplete or lacking. Alrighty. The Great Divergence, China, Europe, and the making of the modern world economy. See, we've moved from fiction and plays to pretty much more how we're viewing the world. So we're going from more, even in the memoirs, that's like a single perspective. We're getting some more broader scope here. And I'd say fiction can't be thought in allegory from a broad perspective, but these people are going more on the nose with it with their nonfiction. Let's see. The Great Divergence sheds light on one of the great questions of history. Why did sustained industrial growth begin in Northwest Europe? Historian Kenneth Parameres shows that as recently as 1750, life expectancy, consumption, and product and factor markets were comparable in Europe and East Asia. Moreover, key regions in China and Japan were no worse off ecologically than those in Western Europe, and each region facing corresponding shortages of land-intensive products. So, yeah. Number 38. Born in Blood and Fire, a concise history of Latin America. I recommend. And notice that it is on back order. Born in Blood and Fire pioneered an integrative approach to teaching Latin American history, combining a regional perspective with a chronological framework. It enables students to more clearly see connections and comparisons that span several countries. In the 5th edition, John Chastain expands the examination of Colombia's surging influence in the region and places greater emphasis on Latin America's connections to the Pacific world. The new Norton Illumin ebook provides the best opportunity for students to grasp major developments and check their understanding as they read. South America, Latin America, and even Spain, I'll throw into this. They have fascinating histories that we Americans are just not even aware of unless Netflix makes a series on it. So I do highly recommend this one. All right. Next up, at number 37, we have White Teeth by Zadie Smith. Now, I love the name Zadie, but it's very uncommon. I wonder... Zadie Smith's dazzling debut caught critics gasping for comparisons, deciding on everyone from Charles Dickens to Salman Rushdie to John Irving and Martin Amis. But the truth is that Zadie Smith's voice is remarkably fluent, altogether wonderfully her own. I need to know, Zadie, where does your name come from and why do your parents choose it? Because that's not a typical name, but I like it. At the center of this invigorating novel are two unlikely friends, Archie Jones and Samad Iqbal. Hapless veterans of World War II, Archie and Samad and their families become agents of England's irrevocable transformation, a second marriage to Clara Bowden, a beautiful, albeit tooth-challenged, Jamaican half his age, quite literally gives Archie a second lease on life and produces Ari? A knowing child whose personality doesn't quite match her name. Jamaican for no problem, Samad's late in life arranged marriage. He had to wait for his bride to be born. Well, thank you for telling me what arranged marriage is, parentheses. Produces twin sons who separate paths, confound Iqbal's every effort to direct them, and a renewed, if selective, submission to his Islamic faith. I have not read this, and it's so complicated. I want to read it now. Thank you. This one was, when did this one come out? 2000. Surprised I hadn't read it. Or 2001. Okay. Let's see. Next up, we're gonna have. Oh, this one's fun. Fast Food Nation. Hey, look, it's America. Haha. By Eric Schlosser. The jaw-dropping expose on how America's fast food industry has shaped the landscape of America. That is the truth. Going on. Number 40, Good to Great, Jim Collins. This is long. Level 5 readers. Built to last, this fine management study of the 90s showed how great companies triumph over time and how long-term sustained performance can be engineered into the DNA of the enterprise from the very beginning. What about the company that is not born with great DNA? How can good companies, mediocre companies, even bad companies achieve enduring greatness? Great question. All right. Oh, you're going to recognize this. Maybe you just recognize it from the movie theater, but it is The Life of Pi by Jan Martel. Let's see. Modern classic adventure, survival, and the power of storytelling is now an award-winning play. A story to make you believe in the soul-sustaining power of fiction, says the Los Angeles Times. After the sinking of a cargo ship, a solitary lifeboat remains bobbing on the wild blue Pacific. The only survivors from the wreck are a 16-year-old boy named Pi, a hyena, a wounded zebra, an orangutan, and a 450-pound Royal Bengal tiger. Yeah. That's all I really need to say. Moving on. Choo-choo. The Language of New Media by Lev Monovich. A stimulating eclectic account of new media that finds its origins in old media, particularly in the cinema. In this book, Lev Monovich offers first systematic and rigorous theory of new media. He places new media within the histories of visual and media cultures of the last few centuries. He discusses new media's reliance on conventions of old media, such as the rectangular frame and mobile camera, and shows how new media works to create the illusions and realities, addresses the viewer, and represents space. He also analyzes categories and forms unique to new media, such as the interface and database. I mean, yeah, if you're like my age, you remember VHS tapes. We don't remember Laserdisc, but they were a thing. And then we got DVDs, Blu-rays, 4K, 8K, bajillion K, HD TV, plasma TVs. So much technology. All right. So going on to number 43. The Tragedy of Great Power Politics by John J. Mearshamir. The updated edition of this classic on the behavior of great powers takes a penetrating look at the question likely to dominate international relations in the 21st century. Can China rise peacefully? Good question. All right. Now we have Globalization and Its Discontents by Joseph E. Stiglitz. When it was first published, this national bestseller quickly became a touchstone in the globalization debate. Renowned economist and Nobel Prize winner Joseph E. Stiglitz had a ringside seat for most of the major economic events of the last decade, including stints as chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors and chief economist at the World Bank. Imagine that. You write a book and everybody's tossing you power. It's so good. Love it. All right. Kicking Away the Ladder by Ha-Jun Chang. Exposes the attempts by development countries to kick away the ladder from developing countries trying to join the economic elite. And that is some interesting cover art they got going on there. Yeah, right. The Five Dysfunctions of a Team, a Leadership Fable. Patrick M. Lencioni. Let's see here. This description is not in English. That is great. Wonder why the title is, though. Anyway, let us try to pull up another link. And let's see. Let's try this one. Back order. Of course it is. No description. This is terrible. I mean, a leadership fable pretty much tells you what it is, to be fair. But for the sake of the video and the link I'm going to leave, yeah, here we go. English. I'm going to copy this and we're going to update our notes here. I was going pretty fast when I was doing this because I had 100 of them to do. So, user error. All right. After her first 2 weeks of observing the problems at Decision Tech, Catherine Peterson, its new CEO, had more than a few moments when she wondered if she should have taken the job. But Catherine knew there was a little chance she would have turned it down. After all, retirement had made her antsy. And nothing excited her more than a challenge. What she could have known when she accepted the job, however, was just how dysfunctional her team was, and how team members would challenge her in ways that no one had ever had before. Now, I do not approve of italics. I get their significance, but always hurts my eyes. All right. Next up, Free Culture by Lawrence Lesige. Sig? One of those. How big media uses technology and the law to lock down culture and control creativity. Free Culture is an entertaining and important look at the past and future of the Cold War between the media industry and new technologies. And if you're staring at the cover and it hurts your eyes, it's intentional, so you can see the copyright hidden behind the burning eye pain. Anyway, Free Culture goes beyond illuminating the catastrophe of our culture of increasing regulation to show examples of how we can make a different future. All right. Let's get rid of some of these links. Oh no. Well, stop share. I'm going to reshare here because I'm minimized and I don't know if that broke things. Share. Haha. Did our thing load? Yep. Globalization, a very short introduction, 6th edition by Manfred B. Steger. We live today in an interconnected world in which ordinary people can become instant online celebrities to millions of fans thousands of miles away, in which religious leaders can influence billions globally, in which humans are altering the climate and environment, in which new infectious diseases spread across continents at lightning speed, and in which complex social forces are increasingly impacted by the digital technology. This is globalization. Very on point of what's happening in the world. All right, 49. How to Read Literature Like a Professor, 3rd edition. A lively and entertaining guide to understanding literature from The Great Gatsby. Hey, that was number 1 on our list. To The Hate You Give by Thomas C. Foster. Well, it's pretty much tells you what it is. And going on. Pathologies of Power, Health, Human Rights, and the New War on the Poor. Chief strategist and co-founder Paul Farmer, with the forward by that person. Pathologies of Power uses harrowing stories of illness, of life and death in extreme situation to interrogate our understanding of human rights. Paul Farmer is a physician and anthropologist with 20 years of experience studying disease in Haiti, Peru, and Russia, argues that promoting the social and economic rights of the world's poor is the most important human rights struggle of our times. All right. And next up, clicky click, McClick The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Night by Mark Haddon. And upside down poodle. Amused. Christopher John Francis Boone knows all the countries of the world and their capitals, every prime number up to 7,057. He relates well to animals but has no understanding of human emotions. He cannot stand to be touched, and he detests the color yellow. I agree. This improbable story of Christopher's quest to investigate the suspicious death of a neighboring dog makes for one of the most captivating, unusual, and widely heralded novels in recent years. This one is on my TBR, and I have a couple of friends who read it, and they say yes. So, let's see if they're wrong. I'll make a video if they're wrong. Anyway, moving on. The Devil in the White City: Murder, Magic, and Madness at the Fair That Changed America. Scrolling on down. Let's see. Combining meticulous research with nail-biting storytelling, Eric Larson has crafted a narrative with all the wonder of the newly discovered history and the thrills of the best fiction. Two men, each handsome and usually adept at his chosen work, embodied an element of the great dynamic that characterized America's rush toward the 20th century. The architect was Daniel Hudson Burnham, the fair's brilliant director of works and the builder of many of the country's most important structures, including the Flatiron Building in New York and Union Station in Washington, D.C. The murderer was Henry H. Holmes, a young doctor who, in a line parody of the White City, built his World's Fair Hotel just west of the fairgrounds, a torture palace complete with dissection table, gas chambers, and 3,000-degree crematorium. Sold. Alrighty. So that again, that is The Devil in the White City. Going on. Free Culture by Lawrence Lessig. Oh, done this one. Haha. Comp again. Anyway. The Precarious Life of Judith Butler. All right. Responding to the U.S. perpetual war, Butler explores how mourning could inspire solidarity. In this profound appraisal of post-September 11th, 2001 America, Judith Butler considers the conditions, heightened vulnerability, and aggression that followed from the attack on the U.S. and U.S. retaliation. Judith Butler critiques the use of violence that has emerged as a response to loss and argues that the discoloration of first world privilege offers instead a chance to imagine a world in which that violence might be minimized, in which interdependency becomes acknowledged as the basis of global political community. So shove back, turn the other cheek kind of debate going on. And I have read this. It is interesting and thought-provoking. Let's see. Precarious Life and The Long Tail by Chris Anderson. What happens when the bottlenecks that stand between supply and demand in our culture go away and everything becomes available to everyone? Yep. The long tail is a powerful new force in our economy, the rise of the niche. As the cost of reaching consumers drops dramatically, our markets are shifting from one-size-fits-all model of mass appeal to one of the unlimited variety for unique taste. From supermarket shelves to advertising agencies, the ability to offer vast choice is changing everything and causing us to rethink where our markets lie and how to get to them. Unlimited selection is revealing truths about what consumers want and how they want to get it, from DVDs at Netflix to songs on iTunes to advertising on Google. All right. Moving on down. A Brief History of Neoliberalism by David Harvey. I've got some players on this cover. Little Oxford stamp at the bottom. Neoliberalism, the doctrine that market exchange is an ethic in itself capable of acting as a guide for all human action, has become dominant in both thought and practice throughout much of the world since 1970 or so. Writing for a wide audience, David Harvey, author of The New Imperialism and the Condition of Postmodernity, here tells the political economic story of where the neoliberalization came from and how it proliferated on the world stage. Through critical engagement with this history, he constructs a framework not only for analyzing the political and economic dangers that now surround us, but also for assessing the prospects for the more socially just alternatives being advocated by many oppositional movements. See, I get it if I think real hard. Let's see. The Cold War, A New History by John Lewis Gaddis. The Dean of Cold War Historians now presents the definitive account of the global confrontation that dominated the last half of the 20th century, drawing on newly opened archives and the reminiscences of major players. John Lewis Gaddis explains not just what happened, but why. From the months in 1945 when the U.S. and the USSR went from an alliance to antagonism and the barely averted Holocaust of the Cuban Missile Crisis, to the maneuvers of Nixon and Mao, Reagan and Gorbachev, brilliant, accessible, almost Shakespearean in its drama. Cold War stands as a triumphant summation of that era, or the era that, more than any other, shaped our own. All right. Going on. Again, we're keeping with these big themes, apparently. All right. Another Spanish addiction. Well, let's fix that. Never Let Me Go by, oh man, Kazuo Ishiguro. So put this back in. There we go. English. I can read English. There we go. Copy paste for our notes for later. Ta-ta. Okay. Nobel Prize winner. Yay. As children, Kathy, Ruth, and Tommy were students at Hailsham, an exclusive boarding school secluded in the English countryside. It was a place of parochial cliques and mysterious rules where teachers were constantly reminding their charges of how special they were. Now, years later, Kathy is a young woman. Ruth and Tommy have re-entered her life, and for the first time, she is beginning to look back at their shared past, understand just what it is that makes them special, and how that gift will shape the rest of their time together. All right. And going on. Post-War, A History of Europe Since 1945 by Tony Judt. Let's see. Almost a decade in the making, this much anticipated grand history of post-war Europe from one of the world's most esteemed historians and intellectuals is a singular achievement. Post-war is the first modern history that covers all of Europe, both East and West, drawing on research in 6 languages to sweep readers through 34 nations and 60 years of political and cultural change, all in one integrated, enthralling narrative, both intellectually ambitious and compelling to read, thrilling in its scope and delightful in small details. Post-war is a rare joy. Read it. It's good. Thorough, but good. Let's see here. Resembling the Social, Introduction to Actor Network Theory. Yep. All right, here we go. Centre des Sociologies de la Innovation, Bruno Latour. It's probably just because I'm looking at the book now and I didn't need to read a bunch of that. Bruno Latour. Oh, okay. Resembling the social is a fundamental challenge for one of the world's leading social theorists to how we understand society and the social. Bruno Latour's contention is that the word social, as used by social scientists, has become laden with assumptions to the point where it has become a misnomer. When the adjective is applied to a phenomenon, it is used to indicate a stabilized state of affairs, a bundle of ties that in due course may be used to account for another phenomenon. Latour also finds the world used as if it were describe a typical material in a comparable way to an adjective such as wooden or steely. Okay, we're moving on. Book, you hurt me. You played a trick on me and I fell for it. All right. The End of Poverty, Economic Possibilities Over Time by Jeffrey Day Sachs. Hailed by Time as one of the world's 100 most influential people, Jeffrey D. Sachs is renowned for his work around the globe advising economies in crisis. Now a classic of its genre, The End of Poverty distills more than 30 years of experience to offer a uniquely informed vision of the steps that can transform impoverished countries into prosperous ones, marrying vivid storytelling with rigorous analysis. I've been reading a lot today out loud. I normally don't do that. Sachs lays out a clear conceptual map of the world economy, explaining his own work in Bolivia, Russia, India, China, and Africa. He offers an integrated set of solutions to the interwoven economic, political, environmental, and social problems that challenge the world's poorest countries. Alrighty. Let's see. Click and load. Click and load. The Global Cold War. The Cold War between the former Soviet Union and the United States indelibly shaped the world we live in today, especially international politics, economics, and military affairs. This volume shows how the globalization of the Cold War during the 20th century created the foundation for most of today's key international conflicts, including the War on Terror. All right. And Convergence Culture, Where the Old and New Media Collide by Henry Jenkins. Winner of the 2000 Society for Cinema and Media Studies Catherine Singer Kavuk's Book Award 2007 Choice Outstanding Academic Title. A classic study on the dynamic between an individual and different media channels. All right. This one. Making Globalization Work by Senior Fellow Joseph E. Stiglitz. Building on the international bestseller Globalization and its discontents, Joseph E. Stiglitz offers here an agenda of inventive solutions to most pressing economic, social, and environmental challenges, with each proposal guided by the fundamental insight that economic globalization continues to outpace both the political structures and the moral sensitivity required to ensure a just and sustainable world. As economic interdependencies continue to gather the peoples of the world into a single community, it brings with it the need to think and act globally. The stringent, intellectually powerful, and inspiring book is an invaluable step in that process. All right. And Planet of Slums by Mike Davis. That is not that book. Yeah, that is totally not that book. Let's go back and find our right book. Oh, I know I did here. Haha. All right, paste. Maybe. There we go. The correct book. Let's swap out our link. Okay, and paste. Yep, there we go. So, Planet of Slums by Mike Davis. According to the United Nations, more than 1 billion people now live in the slums of the cities of the South. In this brilliant and ambitious book, Mike Davis explores the future of a radically unequal and explosively unstable urban world. That's thought-provoking. All right. The Omnivore's Dilemma, A Natural History of Four Meals by Michael Pollan. What should we have for dinner? 10 years ago, Michael Pollan confronted us with this seemingly simple question, and with the omnivore's dilemma, his brilliant and eye-opening exploration of our food choices demonstrate that how we answer today may determine not only our health, but our survival as a species. In the years since, Poland's revolutionary examination has changed the way Americans think about food, bringing wide attention to the little known but vitally important dimensions of food and agriculture in America. Poland launched a national conversation about what we eat and the profound consequences that even the simplest everyday food choices have on both ourselves and the natural world. 10 years later, the omnivore's dilemma continues to transform the way Americans think about the politics, perils, and pleasures of eating. So, no more grandma's chicken laced in lard and double fried. That's a no go. All right. Here we go. The road. No. Oh, this is bad. Why did I mess up so much between together? It was fun when it was a break, but let's go over here, pull up the right book. There we go. This one. Pulitzer Prize winner. And again, The Road by Cormac McCarthy. A father and his son walk along through burned America. Nothing moves in the ravaged landscape save the ash on the wind. It is cold enough to crack stones, and when the snow falls, it is gray. The sky is dark. The destination is the coast, although they don't know what, if anything, awaits them there. They have nothing, just a pistol to defend themselves against the lawless bands that stalk the road, the clothes they are wearing, a cart of scavenged food, and each other. I do recommend this. All right. And if I don't give an exact recommendation, may mean I haven't read the book, or I think it's good but not worth recommending. Because some people take recommendations as high praise when that's not necessarily my intent. I could say a book is good. The Wealth of Networks by Yokai Binkler. With the radical changes in the information production the intent has introduced, we stand at an important moment of transition, says Yokai Binkler in this thought-provoking book. The phenomenon he describes as a social production is reshaping markets while at the same time offering new opportunities to enhance individual freedom, cultural diversity, political discourse, and justice. But these results are by no means inevitable. A systematic campaign to protect the entrenched industrial information economy of the last century threatens the promise of today's emerging network information environment. In this comprehensive social theory of the internet and the network information economy, Binkler describes how patterns of information, knowledge, and cultural production are changing and shows that the way information and knowledge are made available can either limit or enlarge the ways people can create and express themselves. He describes the range of legal and policy choices that confront us and maintains that there is much to be gained or lost by the decisions we make today. All right. And The Absolutely True Diary of Part-Time Indian, National Book Award winner by Sherman Alexie. Okay. Junior is a budding cartoonist growing up on the Spokane Indian Reservation, determined to take his future into his own hands. Junior leaves his troubled school on the res to attend an all-white farm town high school, where the only other Indian is the school mascot. Heartbreaking, funny, and beautifully written. The Absolute True Diary of a Part-Time Indian, based on the author's own experiences and coupled with poignant drawings by Ellen Forney that reflects the character's art, chronicles the contemporary adolescence of one Native American boy as he attempts to break away from the life he was destined to live. All right. And The Shock Doctrine, The Rise of Disaster Capitalism. In this groundbreaking reporting, Naomi Klein introduces the term disaster capitalism. Oh, forgot to say Naomi Klein is the author. Well, there you go. Naomi Klein introduced the term disaster capitalism, whether covering Baghdad after the U.S. occupation, Sri Lanka in the wake of the tsunami, or New Orleans post Katrina, she witnessed something remarkably similar. People still reeling from catastrophe were being hit again, this time with economic shock treatment, losing their land and homes to rapid fire corporate makeovers. All right, coffee break. Woo! If you're with me this long, maybe you take a coffee break too. Okay. Bad Science, Quacks, Hacks, and Big Pharma Flax by Ben Goldacre. Have you ever wondered how one day the media can assert that alcohol is bad for us and the next unashamedly run a story touting the benefits of daily alcohol consumption? Or how drug that is pulled off the market for causing heart attacks ever got approved in the first place? How can average readers who aren't medical doctors or PhDs in biochemistry tell what they should be paying attention to and what's, well, just more, well, bullshit? Haha. Ben Goldacre has made a point of exposing quack doctors and nutritionists' bogus credentialing programs and biased scientific studies. It's also taken the media to task for its willingness to throw facts and proof out the window. But he's not here just to tell you what's wrong. Goldacre is here to teach you how to evaluate placebo effects, double-blind studies, and sample sizes, so you can recognize bad science when you see it. You're about to feel a whole lot better. Uh, Going on. Scroll up a little bit. Okay. Outliers, The Story of Success by Malcolm Gladwell. In the stunning book, Malcolm Gladwell takes us on an intellectual journey through the worlds of outliers and are the best and brightest, the most famous and the most successful. He asks the question, what makes high achievers different? His answer is that we pay too much attention to what successful people are like and too little attention to where they are from. That is, their culture, their family, their generation, and the idiosyncratic experiences of their upbringing. Along the way, he explains the secrets of software billionaires, what it takes to be a great soccer player, why Asians are good at math, and what made the Beatles the great rock band. And there you go. All right. And just like Lord of the Flies, with children murdering each other, that's not a spoiler. Book is old. We got The Hunger Games. Okay, a little newer, but pretty sure not a spoiler at this point. Yeah. The first novel in the worldwide best-selling series by Suzanne Collins. Winning means fame and fortune, losing means certain death. The Hunger Games have begun. In the ruins of a place once known as North America lies the nation of Panem, a shining capital surrounded by 12 outlying districts. The capital is harsh and cruel and keeps the districts in line by forcing them all to send one boy and one girl between the ages of 12 and 18 to participate in the annual Hunger Games, a fight to the death on live TV. There you go. All right. Um, Prosperity Without Growth, Foundations for the Economy of Tomorrow by Tim Jackson. In this new edition, Tim Jackson brings his explosive book up to date, exploring both the philosophical basis for a lasting prosperity and the conceptual foundations for the economy of tomorrow. Starting from clear first principles, this revised edition articulates more precisely the dimensions of this new economy, the nature of enterprise, the quality of our working lives, the structure of investment, and the role of money supply. It shows how these dimensions can be transformed in ways which protect employment, facilitate social investment, reduce inequality, and deliver both ecological and financial stability. A little bit different than Grapes of Wrath, or is it? Haha. All right. The Spirit Level, Why Greater Equality Makes Societies stronger. Power the Socrates. Oh, man. Anyway, This groundbreaking book, based on 30 years research, demonstrates that more unequal societies are bad for almost everyone, within them the well-off and the poor. Remarkable data the book lays out and the measure it uses are like a spirit level which we can hold up to compare different societies. The differences revealed even between rich market democracies are striking. Almost every modern social environmental problem, ill health, lack of the community life, violence, drugs, obesity, mental illness, long working hours, big prison populations, that's a long list of problems, is more likely to occur in a less equal society. The book goes to the heart of the apparent contrast between material success and social failure in many modern national societies. Okay. And The Emperor of All Maladies, a biography of cancer. Siddhartha Mukherjee. We're going to go with that. We're going to say the author of The Emperor of All Maladies became an instant classic when it was published in 2010, a magnificent humane biography of cancer. From its first documented appearance thousands of years ago through the epic 20th century to cure, control, and conquer it to a radical new understanding of its essence, is one of the most highly acclaimed books of its time. In the years since Mukherjee dazzled readers with the Emperor of Maladies, much has changed in the universe of cancer, in our understanding of its causes, in our attempts to prevent it, and in the revolutionary new treatments. In four profound and revolutionary new chapters, essentially a new book about cancer, he illuminates this disease with both a bird's eye view of the landscape and an acute focus on the role of the cell. He also looks at the imminent new studies into the future. Yeah, we get better and better at medicine, and answers are less harder, but not fully solved. So I have read this. It is good, and I advise reading the updated chapter version. Let's see. Clickety click, clackety clack. The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Skloot. They made a movie. There you go. I don't think I've seen the movie. Maybe I have. Can't remember. Anyway, her name was Henrietta Lacks, but scientists know her as Gila. She was a poor southern tobacco farmer who worked the same land as her slave ancestors, yet her cells, taken without her knowledge, became one of the most important tools in medicine. First immortal human cells grown in culture, which are still alive today. Though she has been dead for more than 60 years, Gila cells were vital for developing the polio vaccine, uncovered secrets of cancer, viruses, and the atom bomb's effects, helped lead to important advances like in vitro fertilization, cloning, and gene mapping, and have been bought and sold by the billions. All right. Okay. That is not what I clicked. But if you're curious how I blundered again, I don't know. I don't have an answer. The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. There we go. And we'll do this one. And I think I've talked about this book in a video before, so I don't feel as bad on this one. The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Colorblindness. Seldom does the book have the impact of Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow since it was first published in 2010. It has been cited in judicial decisions and has been adopted in campus-wide and community-wide reads. It helped inspire the creation of the Marshall Project and the new 100 million Art for Justice Fund. It has been the winner of numerous prizes, including the prestigious NAACP Image Award, and has spent nearly 250 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. Most important of all, it has sprawled a whole generational criminal justice reform activists and organizations motivated by Michelle Alexander's unforgettable argument that we have not ended racial caste in America. We have merely redesigned it. Aha. Repackaging or rebranding. Um, I recommend this book. Very good. And going on here, clickety clack. Vibrant Matter, A Political Ecology of Things by Jane Bennett. In Vibrant Matter, the political theorist Jane Bennett, renowned for her work on nature, ethics, and effect, shifts her focus from the human experience of things to things themselves. Bennett argues that political theory needs to do a better job recognizing the active participation of non-human forces and events. Toward that end, she theorizes a vital materiality that runs through and across bodies, both human and non-human. Uh, Bennett explores how political analysis of public events might change were we to acknowledge that agency always emerges as the effect of ad hoc configurations of human and non-human forces. Big thoughts there. All right. And we're on the home stretch. Poor Economics, a radical rethinking of way to fight global poverty by, jinx myself by saying that, Abhijit V. Banerjee and Esther Duflo. In this new edition of their classic work, the winners of the Nobel Prize in Economics unpenned the most common assumptions about how economics works, providing a rich and humane financial timed examination of how poor people actually live. Why do the poor borrow to save? Why do they miss out on free life-saving immunizations but pay the unnecessary drugs? Why do children from poor families attend school but fail to learn anything? All right. So my mispronunciation is getting worse as starting to stare at the screen a little too hard, but we're going to get through it. Is that the right one? No, it's not. Okay. And this is what we really want. Paste. Okay. The Globalization Paradox, Democracy and the Future of the World Economy by Rafiq Hariri, Professor of International Political Economy, Danny Roderick. All right, let me grab the link real quick. Haha, and paste. There we go. In this eloquent challenge to the reigning wisdom of globalization, globalization has been a big theme. Danny Roderick reminds us of the importance of the nation state, arguing forcibly that when the social arrangements of democracies inevitably clash with the international demands of globalization, national priorities should take precedence. All right, so yeah, we're starting to blend together. Too much screen time, but we're going to power through and get through it. Yeah, this one. Maybe I should have went for 50 instead of 100, but here we are. Too late now. Haha. The lean startup. How today's entrepreneurs use continuous innovation to create radically successful business. Most startups fail, but many of those failures are preventable. The lean startup is a new approach being adopted across the globe, changing the way companies are built and new products are launched. Eric Ries defines a startup as an organization dedicated to creating something new under conditions of extreme uncertainty. This is just as true for one person in a garage or a group of seasoned professionals in a Fortune 500 boardroom. What they have in common is a mission to penetrate that fog of uncertainty and discover a successful path to a sustainable business. All right. Let's see here. Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. All right. Lots of fasters that I'm going to skip. System 1 is fast, intuitive, and emotional. System 2 is slower, more deliberative, and more logical. The impact of overconfidence on corporate strategies, the difficulties of predicting that will make us happy in the future, the profound effect of cognitive biases on everything from playing the stock market to planning our next vacation. Each of these can be understood only by knowing how the two systems shape our judgments and decisions. Okay. Let us see. Nope, not what I need. So we're going to copy and paste. And if you're curious, it is Why Nations Fail by Darren Ace Magula and James A. Robertson. This is the one we want. Nobel Prize winner. Copy. And why are some of the nations rich and others poor, divided by wealthy and poverty, health and sickness, food and famine? Is it culture, the wealthy, or the weather? The wealthy. Or geography that determines prosperity or poverty? As Why Nations Fail shows none of these factors in either definitive or destiny. Drawing on 15 years of original research, Darren Ismagul and James Robinson conclusively show that it is our man-made political and economic institutions that underlie economic success or lack of it. All right, so replacing link with a better link. There we go. All right, so Capital in the 21st Century by Professor Thomas Piketty? Piketty? Yeah, there we go. Author Goldhammer. I wish my last name was Goldhammer. I like that one. All right. It seems safe to say that Capital in the 21st Century, the magnum opus of the French economicist Thomas Piketty, will be the most important economics book of the year and maybe one of the decade. And these are all opinions by newspapers. But we'll go with it. Tour de force. Washington Post, how dare you? Extraordinary important book is a scale and sweep. It brings us back to the founders of political economy, a sweeping account of rising inequality. Yeah. Interested in defining issues that are cannot afford. All right. Moving along. Yeah. Citizen, an American lyric, Claudia Rankine. National Book Award finalist, Claudia Rakine's bold new book recounts mounting racial aggressions and ongoing encounters in 21st century daily life and in the media. Some of these encounters are slight, seeming slips of the tongue, and some are intentional, offensive in the classroom, at the supermarket, at home, on the tennis court with Serena Williams, and the soccer field with Zinedine Zidane, online, on TV, everywhere, all the time. The cumulative stresses come to bear on a person's ability to speak, perform, and stay alive. Our addressability is tied to the state of our belonging. Rakine argues, as are our assumptions, pirate, and expectations of citizenship. In essays, image, and poetry, Citizens is a powerful testament to the individual and collective efforts of racism in our contemporary, often named post-race society. So racism, inequality, globalization have been big themes for the majority of these books, which makes sense. You're going to have different opinions in a classroom setting. All right. Coffee. This changes everything. Capitalism versus the climate. Um, scroll. In the short, either we embrace radical change ourselves or the radical changes will be visited upon our physical world. The status quo is no longer an option. And this changes everything. Naomi Klein argues that climate change isn't just another issue to be neatly filed between taxes and healthcare. It's an alarm that calls us to fix an economic system that is already failing us in many ways. Klein meticulously builds the cases of how massively reducing our greenhouse emissions is our best chance to simultaneously reducing gapping inequalities, reimagine our broken democracies, and rebuild our guttered local economies. She exposes the ideological desperation of the climate change deniers, the Masonic delusions of the world by geoengineers, and the tragic defeatism of too many mainstream green initiatives. And she demonstrates precisely why the market has not and cannot fix the climate crisis, but will instead make things worse, with ever more extreme and ecological damaging extraction methods accompanied by rampant disaster capitalism. And a literary award finalist. All right. And click. Between the World and Me, a National Book Award winner, and I guess it's just a New York Times sticker. Anyway, Ta-Nehisi Coates. Yes. In a profound work that pivots from the biggest questions about American history and ideals to the most intimate concerns of a father for his son, Ta-Nehisi Coates offers a powerful new framework for understanding our nation's history and current crisis. Americans have built an empire on the idea of race, a falsehood that damages us all, but falls most heavily on the bodies of black women and men, bodies exploded through slavery, segregation, and today threatened, locked up, and murdered out of all proportion. What it is like to inhabit a black body and find a way to live within it. And how can we all honestly reckon with this fraught history and free ourselves from its burden? Okay. Born a Crime. Stories from South African Childhood by Trevor Noah. Scrolling on down. Trevor Noah's unlikely path from apartheid South Africa to the desk of The Daily Show began with a criminal act. His birth. Trevor was born to a white Swiss father and a black Xhosa mother at a time when such a union was punishable by 5 years in prison. Living proof of his parents' indiscretion, Trevor was kept mostly indoors for the earliest years of his life, bound by the extreme and often absurd measures his mothers took to hide him from the government that could at any moment steal him away. Finally liberated by the end of South Africa's tyrannical white rule, Trevor and his mother set forth on a grand adventure, living openly and freely and embracing the opportunities won by a centuries-long struggle. All right. Oh, name. All right. The Gene, An Intimate History by Siddhartha Mukherjee. Hey, we've had this person before. Cool. And dazzles reader with his polarizing Pulitzer Prize, winning the Emperor of the All Melodies in 2010. This achievement was blah, blah, blah. Here we go. Expresses abstract intellectual ideas through emotional stories and swaddles his medical rigor with rhapsodic tenderness, surprisingly vulnerability, and occasional flashes of pure poetry. Throughout the story of Mukherjee's own family, with its tragic and bewildering history of mental illness, it reminds us of the questions that hang over our ability to translate the science of genetics from the laboratory to the real world. In riveting and dramatic prose, he describes the centuries of research and experimentation from Aristotle and Pythagoras to Mendel and Darwin, from Bavaria and Morgan to Crick, Watson, and Franklin, all the way through the revolutionary 21st century innovators who mapped the human genome. All right. We can do this. We're going to do this. Let's go. Weapons of Mass Destructions. That's the book I wanted to. Yes, okay. Just had to double check. How Big Data Increases Inequality and Threatens Democracy by Kathy O'Neill. Scrolling on down. We live in the age of the algorithm. Increasingly, the decisions that affect our lives, where we go to school, whether we can get a job or a loan, how much we pay for health insurance, are being made not by humans, but by machines. In theory, this should lead to greater fairness. Everyone is judged accordingly to the same rules. Yeah, about that. Anyway, going on. Aha. Educated. No. Wrong link, because that was our previous book. Haha. Anyway, it's called Educated by Tara Westover. And linky swap. All right. So not only do I need to make sure the links work, I also need to make sure they're the right book. That's obvious, Johnny. You're bad. I'm like, yes, today I am. All right. So replace this. You people who just get the list later. I had to work for your list, just so you know. Anyway, a memoir. And born to survivalist in the mountains of Idaho, Tara Westover was 17 the first time she set foot in a classroom. Her family was so isolated from mainstream society that there was no one to ensure the children received an education and no one to intervene when one of Tara's older brothers became violent. When another brother got himself into college, Tara decided to try a new kind of life. Her quest for knowledge transformed her, taking her over oceans and across continents to Harvard and to Cambridge University. Only then would she wonder if she traveled too far, if there was still a way home. That's actually quite interesting. I'm normally not a fan of memoirs, but this one I am particularly a fan of. So, moving along, we have Disability Visibility by Alice Wong. And this, according to the last census, 1 in 5 people in the United States lives with a disability. Some are visible, some are hidden, but all are underrepresented in media and popular culture. Now, just in time for the 30th anniversary of Americans with Disabilities Act, activist Alan Wong brings together an urgent, galvanizing collection of personal essays by contemporary disabled writers. There is Harriet McBride Johnson's Unspeakable Conversations, which describes her famous debut with Princeton philosopher Peter Singer over her own personhood. There is a columnist, S.A. Smith Celebrity Review of a work theater by disabled and performers. There are original pieces by up-and-coming authors like Kai Brown and Habian Girma. There are blog posts, manifestos, eulogies, and testimonies to Congress. All right. Home stretch. We're going to do it. Crying in H Mart, a memoir. All right. In this exquisite story of family, food, grief, and endurance, Michelle Zauner, which is the author that I forgot to mention, proves herself far more than a dazzling singer, songwriter, and guitarist. With humor and heart, she tells of growing up in one of the few Asian American kids at her school in Eugene, Oregon, of struggling with her mother's particular high expectations of her, of a painful adolescence, of a treasured month spent in her grandmother's tiny apartment in Seoul, where she and her mother would bond late at night over heaping plates of food. Yeah, food bonding sounds good to me. All right. The Anthropocene Reviewed Essays of Human Centered Planet by John Green. All right, John, what do we got? Says Johnny. The Anthropocene is the current geological age in which humans have profoundly reshaped the planet and its biodiversity. In this remarkable symphony of essays, best-selling author John Green reviews different uh, facets of the human-centered planet on 5-star scale, from the QWERTY keyboard and sunsets to Canada's geese and penguins of Madagascar. Finding complex and rich with detail, the reviews chart the contradictions of contemporary humanity. All right. Salido, A Read with Gina Pick, a memoir by Javier Zamora, and lots of stickers on the front cover, so there you go. Trip. My parents started using that word about a year ago. One day you'll take a trip to be with us, like an adventure. Javier Zamora's adventure is a 3,000-mile journey from his small town in El Salvador through Guatemala and Mexico and across the U.S. border. He will leave behind his beloved aunt and grandparents to reunite with a mother who left 4 years ago and a father he barely remembers. Traveling alone amid a group of strangers and a coyote hired to lead them to safety, Javier expects his trip to last 2 short weeks. Yeah. This is on my TBR pile, but has a lot of stickers, and I like the premise. Stickers don't do much for me. The premise does, just to clarify. And last one, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. Um, let's see. On a bitter cold day in the December of his junior year at Harvard, Sam Mazur exists a subway car and sees amid the hordes of people waiting on the platform Sadie Green, he calls her name for a moment. She pretends she hasn't heard him, but then she turns and the game begins a legendary collaboration that will launch them to stardom. Huzzah! That was exhausting, but worth it. So, if you stuck with me for the whole thing, and there's very few of you at this point, so gold star for you. You notice a tonality shift. A lot of them exploring themes of the world, either in a fictional narrative, as we start in the earlier years, then it morphs into just calling, finger pointing the problems, to more of a memoir perspective of things. And it's really great to see all these shifts from different generations and opinions throughout time. And as we're noticing, we're at the tensions were high with all the political globalization things, but going down the path we went on, we're going to more of a personable experience instead of these wide problems. And none of these are good or bad. They're just, I think, a society finger pointing of what we care about at the moment. Like, what is our concern now? So, I think that will do it for today. If you liked the video, well, yeah, like it and leave a thumbs up. And feel free to subscribe. I have a Discord if you want to join and talk about more books on a casual level. Also, a Patreon if you want to support me financially and join a kick-ass book club. And sure you do. You know what to do. Click the links. Do the things. Again, I will leave a very lengthy, and by that I mean a short Google Doc link to all these 100 books I just went over. And you can pick and choose what you want, take my recommendations, ignore them all you want. So, yep, that's it for today. And as always, keep on booking on.